looking at this?
You're going for that unless you want to email me.
No,
and then I'll put it in.
Okay, the first item is update on gas service. She had another homeowner sign up, which has a few more who are thinking about it, and I have a neighbor as well who said he's definitely doing it. And she said I will keep in touch with them as well as trying to get a few more. If anybody knows anybody else who would be affected by,
Well, those people, like, for instance, I was trying to get in touch with people, but it was just between work and just seeing people and not being home. So I didn't realize we were talking about Chestnut, the Walnut, I watched this for the entire village, or is this?
no, it's not for the
Just
entire
for,
village.
I'm just saying, it's just for pretty much Chestnut, because I was reading the minutes from last year. We were reading the minutes from last month. So if we can get up people on Walnut, will they extend it down to Walnut
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Yes.
But there was a deadline for that, I know we passed it, because.
Well, as far as I know, it's still open and we're still trying. The
Okay.
issue, if I recall, was that we had enough to definitely take the gas, down to the bottom of Washington.
Okay. I remember that.
So I don't think there was anywhere near enough that it was going to go to Walnut. I think possibly Birchwood, but Chestnut we were short like 3.
4 people,
Or 4, something like that. So it's still being written.
All right. So we're going on another deadline, or is it just going to go until we get the people?
Well,
and then
I
that's
don't
it?
know. I don't think it was our deadline. I think it was PSEG's.
Was it? Okay.
And she said, I will have another update in March. Okay, item 2. The so-called homeless person.
Yeah, I'm curious about this one. I'm curious about this one.
Okay, at the last meeting, we had a report that one of the residents bordering the preserve said that they believed that somebody was living in a lean-to that they had constructed, some kind of structure that was in there and visible all the way to the property line of PSEG. And we were going to investigate it. But none of us could
You
go.
also a person, or?
Well, that is part of the story. When I was down there, my son bought a house on Washington. So I've been down there a lot, and one of the neighbors came to me and said, I think there's somebody living in there because a guy came walking out and he went like this to me. I'm nervous because he's entering. So that, coupled with that structure, we're thinking that this person is living in there.
Right.
The problem is we can't have code go in there. None of us are supposed to go in there. So the way we left it at the last meeting was that somebody was going to contact the preservation, the preserve. What's that called?
The trust, the
Trust?
village trust.
Something like that. So in the interim, I was down there and doing some work, and Chris Mars and Charlie Nielsen
Right there too.
came in and they were walking out of preserve. And so I went over to them and they said that we went up to the thing and there's definitely somebody in there. And they said it's remarkably put together. There's fresh water bottles. There was even a solar light with the light shining into the it was a kind of a makeshift tent. So I was going to call the police. And Chris, who likes to talk, and I were talking for probably 45 minutes. And a couple of kids came walking by on Washington and started walking into the woods.
So it was a fort.
It was a fort.
Yeah.
They were Poquott kids. And, but I had gone back in there with Chris to just look at it. It was something that I didn't think kids could make. It was really,
On YouTube.
because it was waterproof. They had large pieces of carpet that they made a lean-to, like a teepee, put carpet over it, and then put line around it to hold it in place. And then they had a bed in there. So anyway, they were Poquott kids. They said that they did it, and I said, all right, we're not going to call the police, but you have to pull that stuff out of there, bring it to the curb, and we'll get rid of it, don't go in there, nobody's allowed in there, it's absurd. But I had some doubts, especially with that report of the guy. Who was that guy? But anyway, when Cindy called our Carter, quick way to pick it up because it was on the reserve side of the road. They said they would do it, but it had to be all rolled up. It was just a pile of junk. And another resident they called and thought that somebody had just dumped it.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I said, well, that's where
Anyway, so I went over there and I tied it all up. There were about 9 rolls of carpet. Tied them up, and one of them was a piece of foam rubber that came from the house that I'm cleaning out. And then I remembered, wait a minute, I didn't even look at the kids. While I was working, a couple of kids came by and said, "Mister, do you mind if we take this foam rubber for a school project?"
Yeah.
So those were the kids. So end of the story, and we don't know who that guy was who walked in. But I'm still a little concerned about it because the neighbor said it happened twice that she saw him, and he did that whole thing.
Right. Well,
So we'll have to see about that. Okay. Third item, discuss the dock survey from Nelson Pope and Voorhees. Which is, her note is, for your information, there are many companies that do this kind of work. This needs to be done to do the piles. The dock moved the equipment because of weather. And
Yeah, we never
The barge was moved, it was there, then the weather got bad, then it was gone, and the boat.
Okay, but the issue, we have to table this, but I think we need to kind of weigh in on this. I mean, I'm going to talk to Dee about it, for our discussions before. The issue is not that it needs to be done, it's that we were billed $2,000 for it, and that was an unbudgeted expense. Just all of a sudden they
We had
said,
that,
yeah.
we were emailed, that's one of my concerns.
So we have to talk about this. We seem to be mostly in agreement that it should be the contractors who are building the dock, and it should have been in the bid.
Right, it should have been in the
And
scope.
if they needed to sub it out, include that in the whole amount.
Right.
So then we approve a certain amount for the cost of the dock, and then that's it.
Right.
So we're going to table this item and wait till we get some further information.
What would you say, was that in the scope of work done? I mean, is that, I mean, if it comes down on us, well, we have
I
to.
tell you, I don't know,
No, we're not gonna check.
I don't
Yeah,
recall
because
it,
that
but I
should have been
don't
something
know.
that Voorhees should have come up and said, look, we have, this has got, I mean, you're building a house, you gotta get it surveyed, I mean, anything you do, I mean.
Yeah, if they said that, we dealt with it, it would have been folded in some way, but it would have been a budgeted expense,
Right.
as opposed to a surprise.
Right. I
You
just
just-
know which way it's gonna go.
That's what I was going to suggest, that you make a motion to table this, and I'll report back to the board.
Okay,
motion to table?
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yep, I got an eye. I have one question about that though, we just had that, the playground assessment, remember for the playgrounds? We told, there was, I watched the video in the last meeting, I looked at the minutes, but, now, was there gonna have to be an assessment on that dock as well? Is, like a hazard assessment because of the liability, or is it just gonna be a blanket policy, how would that work?
No, well,
Covered under the village.
it's covered under our
It is.
policy, and the amount that our policy might be raised as a result of that addition.
Does anybody know what's gonna cost for the
It
insurance?
was like $40 or $50
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
very small amount.
It's small amount. Okay, discuss local law 183.
Still working on it. I spent other time on the code of ethics.
Will we have it for March?
I'll have it for March.
I also was going to add to that, I thought I sent it out, maybe I didn't, 35, which is advertising and signs. Because that also had, in the original 183, it had mention of signs. And I took that section and put it together with 35 advertising. And added a section on the duration of signs, political signs. And I just took that from the Brookhaven Town Code.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm going to say 2 pages. So if you can look at it, it won't take too much of your time, and we can do that all
Okay.
at once. Discuss the ethics policy. You will be given a copy tonight. the board should review it for discussion in the March meeting, and we have.
Oh, I
They're
put it
the
in your
boxes.
mailboxes. I
Oh,
collect
okay,
email
okay.
and put it in the mailbox.
Okay,
You
so-
wanna get it?
No,
No,
discuss
you
it
know,
in
we'll
March.
all review it and weigh in on it.
I got okay. Yeah,
Okay. Item 6, discuss trees to be removed in the village. Harry has given me a list. He may have prices if he is there tonight, which is not. David has removed some of the trees on the list that can be done by hand. I'm going to table that.
Can I just ask a question about this? How is Harry the qualified to determine which trees need to be
I
removed
agree
in the
with you,
village?
because I went through the same exact thing.
I don't feel like I should respond. The issue was that we were not moving along fast enough, I know that, and that Harry, having done it before, said that he would do it, and she appointed him as a commissioner that would then allow him to start.
Well, I guess then the other thing I think we should be talking about is when he decides to cut trees down, this becomes pretty expensive. How much of that
Well,
is
that's why we're here to kind of talk about that. But obviously, we need to table it.
Mhm.
But
But I just want to make sure nothing's being done in regards to removal of trees until we determine it. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Well,
If
from
you
my
wanna make a
experience-
vote.
Well, from my experience, last spring when myself, Joe Pupis, Harry Berry, the arborist that that Bill recommended, myself, we went around in Bill's truck and we pretty much saw, we looked and we wrote that list between what I came up with and what other lists, and whatever work we needed to do. So it was a big conglomerate of everything we saw. So
And didn't we do a big job?
we did, yes, now, going along with, before that, just to clarify, before that even took place, Dee and I had a conversation in the parking lot. She says, anything that's affecting power lines or common sense, it's people's safety. I said, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for power lines. I drove through this village twice, 3 times. And you know what? I saw nothing that was affecting power lines or something that just were, either that or the residents' trees. Now, when you can start deciding how you're gonna get someone to cut down their own trees or make them cut them down because they're a hazard, all right, then we'll have something to talk about.
But what was your recommendation?
My recommendation was to get an arborist to come through and look through it, but is Harry Rec qualified? Because Harry was calling stuff out left and right in the truck. I said, all right. just-
Well, John, I don't think that's not my recollection.
You weren't there, John.
No, I'm not.
I brought it up at the meeting. I'll tell you, you asked about it.
Let me finish. No, but Harry was there, so he's asking a question. I'm trying to say, from my experience, what I saw, and then there's an extensive list. However, every time that I was called, when I'm in the village and I'm home, and I'll cut down a tree and I'll cut it up and I'll put it aside. It's usually Frank or one of public, I'll have no problem doing it. If I'm not here, can't do it. It's always been a residence tree, or if it was a healthy tree where it was just a situation. But from 6 months, either we have an epidemic of trees dying in 6 months, that's my point. Like, how much could really happen in the 6 months of 4 people going around this village? Look around. That's all I want to add to it. Not recommending anything, I'm just saying that's from my
Right,
experience.
and I'm not looking to go back in time.
I'm
just
not
talking
either.
about
I'm just saying
from
what we
here
saw.
From here forward, tree removal costs a lot of money. And I just think it becomes a big item, and we just spent a lot of money on tree removal. I think we need to be cautious about this. That's all.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
the process, again, I don't want to, nor am I qualified, to comment on where we are with this.
Right.
But the process was, and as far as I'm concerned, continues to be, that we make a survey, somebody has to spearhead that, and that was you.
Well, there was 4 people.
Make a survey.
There was 4 of us
Right,
that did it.
But
So I think
that
8
was-
eyes are better than 2.
And that's fine, that's great. I remember last time, maybe it was 2 years ago, but I went around with Harry because I wanted to have 2 guys in there rather than just one person
Correct.
make these decisions. It then is reviewed vis-à-vis, how much is this gonna cost us?
Great, that's what I want to
And
know.
then, and that was done as a management decision.
In order of
based
severity
on-
and whether,
Sure.
you know,
Correct.
Right,
Right,
So,
that's what I want to,
that's-
I just don't want to get caught up in endless tree removal fees.
Well, the problem is nobody, including these arborists, can predict with 100% accuracy.
Right, so if we
We had
go
trees
look
go
at
Last
down,
year I
so
got up
it's
on Cedar was,
And then guys, you-
I was with Mike Schaefer, and he called me and he says, look, this thing, it was too big, I gotta cut up. I mean, I moved as much as I possibly could, it was in the middle of a snowstorm, but I was like, I would never think of that tree, would have been a
That's right.
problem.
And
But
that's
the only
always-
reason why I did finish taking it down is because it was hanging off the tree, it was near power lines, I did the best I could at the time, but I came down and that was it. But we drove past it, no one saw that being an issue. And a lot of times, if a tree does fall, it's usually more times than none, it's a residence tree. But anything we saw hanging over the street, hanging over wires that was a threat to the wires for someone's safety was taken care of.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
All right, well, anyway.
That's what left off 6 months
Okay,
ago.
I don't want to belabor the point, but the cost factor is the limiting factor. That is what determines how many of those trees actually get done. Some trees, it's a very clear potential emergency, and there's no doubt about it, no matter what the cost, we have to take care of that. So one of the issues, as an aside, that I think is, we haven't ever really resolved it. If you recall, we had a tree policy that went nowhere. But the privately owned trees that are close to the street, that come down, even though they're in the middle of a lawn, but they're these big trees that come down into the street and whatever. We really haven't figured out how we can tell people, look, you really need to spend a couple $100 to attend to those
So
trees.
there
So
is
then they
no
come
cure.
down and we're in that situation.
So we don't have a way to, like I said, if you can find a way, if you can find a way to tell somebody, listen, you gotta take care of that.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, whenever we get into that kind of thing where we as a village tell people what they have to do regarding the property,
Well, Joe,
it's always a
how does that work if
battle.
it was like a neighbor's house? If you notify a neighbor saying, listen, this tree's leaning, if they're notified, they're responsible, correct?
No,
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 I just had, am I allowed to talk?
no,
no.
actually not.
No, they're not responsible.
No,
They're not
technically-
responsible if you notify them?
When the tree comes down onto your property, you're responsible for,
Removal.
from the property line over, and they're
Right.
responsible for the other side.
Okay.
And the same thing with the street.
Same thing, okay.
But insurance companies can work around that because they can notify the neighbor that
Okay.
your tree is a danger to the person that we're covering.
Right, okay.
Anyway.
All right, I just
Okay,
wanted to
so
get
that'll be discussed further in March. Okay. Discuss village law, chapter 113, peddling and soliciting.
Because we're in litigation, I was hesitating on recommending a new local law because the attorneys for Aptiv have already commented that one of the things that they think, I'll give the status of the case in a few minutes, but they've already commented on the fact that we withdrew the law that we had. So I was hesitant to replace it right now. We will do it before the weather gets good.
Is that kind of something that requires us kind of kicking it around at one of these meetings as far as content?
Well, there's pretty, yes, but there's pretty exact language now that's required by the cases that have been litigated. There was a big case in Oyster Bay, the town of Oyster Bay, where the town was sued for over peddling and soliciting, a freedom of speech ban. And so we pretty much have to go with the guidelines that the courts have set up. So it'll be fairly exact language.
Okay. I'd like to have a little bit of discussion, including input from residents, because my own feeling is that if we have everybody has these signs in a nice little village, no trespassing private property, it's a legal thing that helps us deal with an issue that is, in fact, not much of an issue. And meantime, we're changing the character of the village. We're Poquott, stay away, we don't like it. And so I would not like to see that, so we'll figure that one out. So I'm not tabling that till March, it's just tabled indefinitely.
Yes, I'll try to have a version to you by March, so that's at least discussed.
And open items for the board to review from the village attorney, open lawsuits and the property and what matter.
So we have two lawsuits. The first one is Ashley Holmes suing the village over suing the ZBA over the Morton Manor decision. And the village made a motion to dismiss that case, which we're waiting to have decided by the court. And the company that, Ashley Holmes was in contract with the county to buy that property, and they did not, for whatever, I don't have personal knowledge on what happened to the contract, but my understanding is there is no more contract. I think there is no more contract, they're out of contract. And so we made a motion to this, when we found that out, we made a motion to dismiss the lawsuit on that basis, that they don't have any interest in the property any longer. So we're waiting for that motion to be decided. In the meantime, we gave the county a deposit on the purchase of the property. The sale of the property by the county has to be approved by the legislature. We're waiting for that to happen. It should happen soon, and then we'll proceed to closing. The other case that we have is Aptiv. Aptiv sued the village because we had a ban on soliciting, as with other villages that they're bothering now also. And but the thing about our case is that we realize that they, in order to be an exterminating company in Suffolk County, you have to have a special kind of license from Consumer Affairs. We found out shortly after the case started that they don't have that kind of license, and because they don't have that kind of license, they were not allowed to advertise. So we didn't have to worry about a village ban on their advertising because there was actually a Suffolk County ban on their advertising. So we let the judge know that. We made a motion to dismiss the case on those grounds, and we're waiting for a decision from the court.
For cases like this that go to a certain point and then are dismissed, the additional legal fees that we incur, we can't recapture them.
So our legal fees now are being paid for by the insurance company. I think our policy, we also get, if I'm not mistaken, we have a $5,000 credit. Every year, I believe, we can make a claim for an additional $5,000 in legal fees that they're not otherwise covering. So for instance, I think we got a check for Ashley Holmes for last year, the year before. We may get a check for the 2018 expenses. The other part about Aptiv, which is important, is that Suffolk County has contacted our attorneys, and they want to know if there was any specific, if anybody in the village has a specific memory or of a time and a date that they know that somebody from Aptiv was at their house soliciting. Not that somebody knocked on their door, but that there was some, and they would know if it was Aptiv because they had a very specific routine. The two guys would show up with a clipboard and give you information and stuff. So if there's anybody in the village with that that can piece that together, would be helpful to us.
Is there anything sensitive where we couldn't just put it out there on mail?
I'll ask
Mail
the
list or
attorney.
something like that?
Yeah, I'll ask the attorney before we do.
Because that would be the next thing, is how would we get that out to everybody
Yes.
to weigh in on that? Okay. So, can I suggest that if you could have an answer to that you would let Dee know, and that we could just do it? Could we make a resolution that we would agree to have
Yeah, if we
something
can
that go
find
out
a
to
way
the
to get
residents?
information out to the residents about them, that'd be
On
great.
the website, I mean,
Yeah, on the website.
just put a website in, if anybody was contacted through this company.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that the website,
Well, that's probably easier access than the email list. I think the website would probably be the easiest way.
Yeah, if it goes out on the website,
Maybe through the
Aptiv,
Civic Association and.
yeah, I
think we'd have
think they would
access
have
to
a
it.
problem with that.
yeah, because Aptiv, I'm sure their attorneys and the
Sure.
company Google their name all the time.
Yeah.
But let me talk to the federal attorney that's handling it, and I'll let you know.
I mean, we're never gonna get 100% response, and so there's a few people who are not on that list, either because they're not online or they don't want their names on the list. But we could certainly get a pretty good response about,
I think you just need to know if someone has recollection of it.
Yeah, if we just got one or two people, it'd be-
Right, that was-
we could-
Worldwide.
so I would say if we just put out a blast to everybody that somebody would, but, so whatever you recommend.
Who they were.
Okay, let me talk to the attorney first.
Okay, so, in terms of how
I
this
think
is
they
going
just
to
have, just to get it, just to see if anyone recalls it happening.
I would,
You'll-
so the report is the village attorney's going to see if there was any, the village attorney's going to see if there was any citizen complaints or contact with the FT.
Okay, and the means would be that once you check on what you're going to check on, you'll just let Dee know and she can just do it?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
We don't need to make a formal resolution.
No.
Okay, that's the, our agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to go in? Well, it's 6:30.
I just wonder, was one thing on Manor Road I was just asking about because, why are we buying the property on Manor Road? Is there a reason just to keep?
I think it was one of the meetings you weren't here, we voted to.
No, you
What was the
voted
reason?
me
I
on
was
it.
here. I know, but what was the reason for buying it? I mean, because
To
of the
preserve it as
rules.
open space.
Yeah. Could we always sell that property later on down the road if we want to for development rights?
No, the idea was, it's not buildable. But people would buy it because it went to auction.
Right.
And then they couldn't build on it, and then we kept getting sued. So it would become.
So you're just locking out a
So we're
lawsuit.
locking it in.
Okay.
And that was why, that's why we were talking about this.
Right.
If you say nay, explain what.
Well, I
your
just
question is,
said,
and then
I was just saying, was there any other option? Could the village profit from it by selling it? Like, if you can't build on it, can someone buy it
It's the whole.
to offset the
reason for it.
I know, to offset the development rights where they can use it applied to someplace else? Or it is an open space?
What's open space? If we wanted to put a swing set in
Well, I
there
know,
or
for
something, I
instance,
guess
well,
we could
I'm just
do it.
asking a question, I'm just, because the situation where, like, for instance, my landlord, when I had the restaurant, they had to have open space for the aquifer for drainage. I mean, she had to buy property and actually hold it to be open space, so as long as you have property held and it could be built on, that was the situation, so could the village try and make a profit from it? That's why I asked, could it be sold again?
Well, and one of the things you might do is, which the county wasn't willing to do, is offer it to the neighbors. But covenant that it's going to be not disturbed. So either divide it up or, whatever way the neighbors, there's 4 or 5 houses that basically that's their backyard.
They're adjacent to it,
So
yeah.
one of the things you could do, the county would not sell it to another private person, they would only do that through an auction.
But then we could get it and split it in their lots.
Just as an idea, if the board wanted to.
Well, just as it, so that it benefited the village to have that open space, because then it is, if someone was in there and they did get hurt, would that be a liability? Where, I mean, that's just like anything else with the rest of the village, correct?
Yes.
My thinking is, what would be the motivation for any private landowner
No, I just
to
told
buy
you,
the property,
to offset development rights.
but it won't be development rights? In other words, if they were to, there will never be the ability to develop that land.
Or for open space, correct? So if it's
Right,
an open
but,
space.
but then they would pay taxes on the additional land.
Well, right, but then, I know, Jim, I
I
realize.
think John's just
Why would
trying
they
to
buy
think of
it?
ideas, I don't think we have to keep talking about it.
Okay.
I was just trying to I just explained it. If somebody wants to buy it for that reason, is it possible that the village would turn and sell it? It can't be built on, but then someone's paying tax on it, the village is making a profit on that though.
I think the idea with the county was that we would own the property and maintain it as open space. I think that's the understanding of the county.
Just trying to put that out there. Just asking, that's it, I don't want to.
Okay. So you guys don't have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, so the working meeting is adjourned at 6:35. Now, we can go right into the...
Yes.
No,
break
that's
right?
great. I'll just throw it into it.
It's a motion to open and then we do the pledge of allegiance.
Motion to open the Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay, the Board of Trustees meeting will call to order. Do I have to do this? Okay.
Yeah, second, yeah.
6:35, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
see the motion. Yeah, I have that motion.
We have one more.
Chris and Jeff, and then,
Now, what am I working on then as far as the agenda for the,
Looking out from there to Coach Athletic.
Go to the other side.
And you can see where Poquott is before 1930.
Of
The old
the,
oyster.
Oyster beds?
The whole dock that was there.
Oh, the oyster
around
in there.
Jeff.
Like the processing plant that was there over
This
there.
one?
Down in the,
Right off of California Beach.
no, I'm saying, where is it?
It's at the shipyards down in down in Port.
okay, announcements. Village Hall will be closed on February 18th in honor of President's Day. Our reports, public safety. Do we have a report?
Bob?
Is there a report from public safety?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, we'll table that for next month. And village treasurer?
I don't have much to report either. I didn't get the numbers like I usually get them in advance. So I've looked at them now. There doesn't appear to be anything unusual happening, except that until today, we were lucky about snow.
Right. Okay. Good enough. And we'll go straight to public comments.
I have a question.
Name.
When,
Name?
Felicia Chuck, Washington Street. When is our first payment due on the bond?
Not until the next fiscal year.
Okay.
It's not until,
What determines that?
well, it's 1 year after we got the bonds, so
Okay.
the bonds, I think, closed
December 7th.
Yeah, so it's next December, next November, December.
So December 7th you closed on it?
That's,
Yeah.
so I was saying,
Okay.
yes, I don't know.
And how much is the yearly payment on that?
About $35,000.
Well, didn't we borrow $250?
Yes, but the annual payment is only.
How? 50 divided
Oh,
by
as
5?
far as, I'm talking.
250 divided by 5 is 50 a year without interest. So how could it be 35,000?
For some reason, I have the number 35 in mind.
Is that one we didn't do tonight?
Well, you're right, I'd have to take a look at the documents, but
We can have that information for you.
we had
Excuse me?
it
We can get
budgeted
that
the
in.
first year. We had it budgeted the first year at